give, yes, give the right to people, okay, fine, practice your ethnic identity, but don't forget your heritage, because in Ador, it's not the blood of the Amaras which was only lit, it's the blood of the Oromos. Actually, Oromos paid so much to keep the freedom of Ethiopia. So they paid dearly with their blood, and that blood was mixed already in the battlefield to protect, to preserve Ethiopia. Promote more unity than really ethnicizing the country. But let those, like what happened to last week was a shame. When Bosaban went to Baharda, the Hamaras didn't let it have, they were threatening them. So a meeting was stopped. That shouldn't happen anywhere. Those who are competing on the basis of Ethiopia should be allowed to go anywhere and promote their idea, like we are promoting, we are talking now. People should put their ideas. Unity is the most important thing. I love unity. I love not the unity of Ethiopians solo also. I want to see the unity of Somalia, Sudan, Ethiopia, Eritrea. Leave alone. The solution should be promoting unity, unity, and unity. Thank you.
Thank you, Nemo. So now the floor is yours. We can start with you. Yeah, you have to come to the front when you have a question.
Thank you very much that we have this opportunity to raise some questions on the presentations you have presented. I have first question for Ondimu. My question is, number one is, the question, what is ethnic conflict? Maybe have something negative and positive for the country's Ethiopian politics now, what is currently going on there. When you say at the first time, starting your presentation, you see and assess Ethiopian problem from your understanding, from your perspective, from your own world of ideology. I'm going to ask my question. Yes, for me, I cannot see Ethiopian problem as an ethnic problem. It is, we can't see the problem we are facing in Ethiopia in rest of Africa. Almost all of them have been or had been colonized. Post-colonialism, we haven't seen that. But Ethiopia is another case. I'm going to ask, you have been saying about the Ethiopian problem, and current problem is ethnic problem. It is not ethnic problem. It is the way. Okay, let me ask a question. You raised some example about Western world, England, USA, Soviet Union, but this does not in the case of Ethiopia. The solution is only multinationalism, multicultural. When you don't recognize my Oromo identity, let me finish. That is only solution for Ethiopian ethnic problem, multinationalism. If Amara don't recognize Oromo, if Tigray don't recognize culture of Oromo, you don't need to find a solution.
I don't want this to happen again. Just come with a short question so that we can use the time we have for all of us. There are a lot of people with a lot of questions. I can't have an opinion. I just want questions. These people are here, traveled a long way to answer questions for people, and we can't have opinions. Everybody have an opinion. I just want questions. I'm really sorry. I'll prefer. Like I said, we're just gonna have questions. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. This is for everyone. And I said I don't want this to happen again. Just questions. Anybody who have a question?
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
have a question. And I will ask it from here. Not
No, we want it for the podcast for this coming.
I would like to ask both of you, do you think that it will happen an election or it will be a postponed election? I need a more pragmatic answer, not about, what do you think about the situation you have described with both of you? Because there is a lot of tension in the south, in the west, in Al-Saba. Do you think that it will be a postponed election? Thank you very much.
We can have one more question so we can answer it together. To save time. You can write comments later on Facebook.
I have no different question, but to add more about this election. Because this time, as you have said, there is no chance for Group 7 to have meeting in Bahanda. Even for other political groups, they have no chance even to open office in other rural areas. And there is a problem. So I'm worried about the coming election. Is it possible to have election on your assessment, I think?
Thank you.
Okay, elections. I think that the opposition is very divided on the timing of the elections. So those political parties who have been in Ethiopia during the last 27 years, who have not been going in exile, they generally prefer the elections to be held on time because they have been there, they have their organizations on the ground. Those parties who returned, like Gimbot Sabat, who needs time to establish themselves, they would like the elections to be postponed, also for completing the reforms that have already started. Then there are a lot of practical issues that need to be solved before elections, like the census. The census was originally timed for 2017, then it was timed for 2019, April, now it has been postponed again. If you don't have a census, it's very difficult to make new constituencies and make, credible constituencies, boundaries between election, what's it called in English? Constituencies? Yes. And of course also the census in itself can create more conflicts because there will be discussions, are these counted, what about the IDPs, what about areas where there are mixed populations, how are they going to be counted? And what about the Rayas and the Kament in the border areas between Amhara and Tigray, for example? And then another issue, which is also complicating the preparations for the elections, is that they have now started a process of introducing digitalized elections. That is, having a biometric voter registration and possibly also a digitalized counting of votes. And this is, if you look at experience from other African countries, you see that this is very complicated. It takes time to understand and how to make this credible. And at the moment, you have an electoral board. Yes, it has a new chairman, Beltugon Medixa, but all the rest of the electoral board is the old one, which is very weak in capacity, and they can impossibly handle a digital election. So I think, and in addition, you have a lack of rule of law on the ground in many corners of the country, and an election in such a situation would probably make more violence than is at the moment. So there are a lot of arguments favoring postponing the elections. If you postpone them more than 6 months, you need a constitutional change. and that is also a process in itself. And but of course, Abiy is not an elected prime minister. He should be having people's votes if he's going to continue the reform. So in that way, it could be a strong argument in favor of having elections on time.
We can go on to the next question. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Ellen Kjestrud, and I work for Statistics Norway, and we started talking about, actually starting answering my question, because it's about the census. But my question is concerned, I know that the census is coming up. I know nothing about what they're going to ask about in the survey, but it's always a debated question whether to include ethnicity or what language people speak in the census. And I'm wondering, you seem to know a lot about it, so whether they are actually asking those questions in the census, and if not, if you know if it would be good for Ethiopia to know the ethnicity of its people all over, or if it would be more divisive to collect that data, which is not collected in some other countries just based on, we don't want to know. It creates more problems than it solves.
Thank you. Well, more question?
First of all, I would like to thank you for your wonderful presentation, but you have just mentioned from political perspective only about the impact, but you didn't mention about the economic impact, because when you mentioned, I think you have mentioned about the resource, but my question is that, as you know, that it's not only the politics has impact for Abiy's government to have such sort of problem as currently, but what you expect that Abiy government should take in the coming 1 year regarding the economic crisis? As you know, that Ethiopian people have almost 50%, over 50% of the population is underage, and it is, unemployment is also one of the main problems. So what measures should he take? Just can you put it just step by step or chronological? Just from your research, because you read a lot. I'm from Ethiopian Commons Forum, and we have also the same similar meeting on the coming Saturday on Ethiopian current issues.
We have short time for step by step, but you can try something.
Yeah, with the census, I'm not really sure whether they will include in the ethnic identity. I'm not sure.
It's corresponded also, so we don't know the
yeah,
details of it.
but of course it's a really hot issue, and it's been very much discussed. So I'm not sure what the debate will end up with. But I'm really, it would be really interesting to hear more about these countries that have actually not put ethnic identity in their census. I think that's something that there is a political room for it at the moment because of Abiy's rhetoric. But whether it's possible to do it in practice, I'm not sure. And then about the economic policies, that's not really my major expertise. You know, whether he should liberalize, whether he should, you know, all these things. But what I have been following a little bit is the developmental state policies and how they have been trying to attract foreign direct investment. And as far as, if you look at the way they have been managing to attract foreign direct investment, that has been much based on the fact that the country is a relatively stable country, at least up until now. They could say that we come to us, we are providing you with tax holidays and stability, and first of all maybe cheap labor. If they don't